We're now live. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on this live Q&A all about intuition. My name is Clare Josa. I think most of you know me already, and I would like to say a hello. Please let me know via the chat box what your name is, where you're from, say hello, and maybe share with me your one question about intuition that you want to make sure I answer today in today's live session. So, for those of you who haven't met me, I am an NLP trainer, I'm an author of 4 books, I'm a meditation teacher, and I used to be an engineer. And I've been a business coach and mentor for over 12 years. And what I love doing is balancing the ancient wisdom with the inner engineering logic and the NLP mastery on how your mind works to help you unravel the problems you're seeing in your life. So, what I've been doing in the Intuition Breakthrough Blueprint is helping people do this with their intuition, is how to connect with your inner wisdom in a left-brained, logical, rational world where everything has to be data-driven and justified. So I'm hoping you're going to find that useful today. And I've got a load of questions from our Facebook group, so I'll start with those. But first, just to make sure everybody can hear me, could you, in the comments box, in the chat, have a quick hello and let me know where you are and what you'd like to know today. There's a slight lag when I ask you things. It takes a little while for it to reach you. So I'm going to start with the questions, and as your comments come up, then I will dive in and answer them for you. So going to our Facebook group. One of the first questions we had was from Jenny. How do I learn to trust my intuition and drown out the negative competition? That is an absolutely brilliant question. How do you learn to trust your intuition? Well, I asked my meditation mentor this about 7 or 8 years ago now. I was absolutely desperate to get out of my logical engineer left brain world. And he told me the simplest thing to do is to keep an intuition diary. Is you get a notebook, and it really works best if you write this down because then you can flick through it visually, but it's also a physical thing. So you get a notebook, and on one side of the notebook, you write down what your intuition told you, where in your body you feel it, because our intuition is something that comes from in the body, and what action you did or didn't take. And then on the other side of the notebook, on the blank page, in the future, you write down what happened. What did you notice? Did trusting your intuition work? Did it not? And when you start tuning into this more often, you can start giving your intuition marks out of 10. So when you're writing down about intuition, how strong was that feeling? You know, sometimes we get like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 and we still don't act on it. By having a diary over just a month, 2 months, 3 months, you'll find it really tunes your ability to trust. It convinces your left brain that you can trust your intuition. So that's my top tip for how to learn to trust it, is to keep a journal and to have that blank page and go back every now and then and notice what happened. So next question. Again from Jenny, is how come my intuition is right and where does it come from? Now, we had a brilliant discussion a couple of weeks ago in our Facebook group about what is intuition. And what I found fascinating was it's different for each of us. Intuition, instinct, inner wisdom, it's a big mishmash. But the way I like to think about it is your instinct is the primal bit. It's the bit that comes from the reptilian part of the brain that's protecting you, that says, oh no, there's a saber-toothed tiger out there. I think you need to take some action. So your instinct is a very gut thing. We talk about gut instinct. And it's also very short term. You meet somebody, do I trust them? Do I not? Am I safe? Instinct often answers the question, am I safe? And because it comes from the primal part of the brain, it's all about fight or flight. And it's only got access to the cortexes in your brain that deal with short-term decision making. So if you're running your business or your life on instinct, you'll find you make a lot of short-term decisions. Doesn't mean that instinct's wrong. Where intuition differs, instead of answering the question, am I safe? Intuition answers the question, what is the highest thing I could do right now? What's my path? So instinct keeps us safe. Intuition guides us on what to do and where to go, and most importantly, who we are. Where does it come from? I feel it in my body, but I somehow sense it, and I can't put a place on that. But a lot of us believe that intuition is a way of connecting with that part of you that's more than physical. Now, as an inner engineer, it hits my woo-woo button when I say things like that, but there is an element to life that's outside of what is physical. Even scientists can now measure the electromagnetic field from the human heart, which the ancient wise people would have called the auric field or the chakra or the energy center at the heart. So if they can measure that now with modern instruments, just what we can do is way beyond that. You're so much more sensitive than a piece of scientific equipment. So I feel that intuition is very much more about the heart. It doesn't come from your head. And when you connect with your intuition, you somehow know things that you had no rational way of knowing. Psychologists have said over the years and centuries that maybe it's something to do with our unconscious mind. It's being able to get in there and pick out the solutions. For example, if you catch a ball, it's something that my 3-year-old is currently learning to do, and it's amazing watching him do it. And it's a very simple thing to learn, and you can throw a ball to make it very easy for a child to catch. And then by the time they're a teenager, they're playing rounders or baseball or cricket or whatever, and they can catch really impressive balls. You know, you see people leaping in the air and catching a ball that you would have thought is impossible. How did they know how to catch that ball? How did they know? I studied engineering, so a huge amount of my master's work was maths, and doing the kind of maths that meant you would predict with maths where the ball would go and how you had to move to catch it. That maths was like super scary maths, and very few of us managed to get it completely right. It was the kind of thing where the equations would fill a blackboard, and by blackboard I mean something that was like 20 to 30 feet across the room and 6 feet high, filled with maths to work out how to catch that ball. A teenager can do it without even thinking. Now that to me is connecting somehow with inner wisdom. There is a bit of you that's doing that maths without having to do the maths. There's a bit of you that knows stuff that you couldn't consciously work out. There is pretty much no way most of us could do the maths in our head to predict what the trajectory of the ball was going to be, at which point, and when we needed to leap to catch it. We just can't do that. It comes from deep inside. And for me, I believe that connecting with your intuition comes from that same deep place. That bit of you that holds the answers, that doesn't need to justify them rationally. When you connect with that, you can achieve things that seem impossible. When you try to do the maths for catching that ball, catching it seems impossible. And yet it can be easy. Your intuition allows you to do the same things with your life. So I hope that answers your 2 questions for you, Jenny. I'm going to move on to some more. So, from Julie, this is a really great one. How do you manage to find that still small voice of calm point? This is the thing with intuition, is you can't find it when you're stressed. When you're stressed, you've gone into the sympathetic nervous system, which deals with fight or flight. That gets you back to the primal part of the brain. That means all you've got access to is instinct and short-term decision making. To hear your intuition, you need to get to calm. On the Intuition Breakthrough Blueprint, we talk about how to do this in quite a lot of detail, but in case you're not signed up for that program, the most important thing you can do is to get grounded. So if your mind is running stories of how stressful everything is and how you can't trust your intuition, sit or stand still. Allow yourself to really become physically aware of the points of contact on the ground. Allow the stress to drain out into the earth through those points of contact. Allow the spine to lengthen, the sternum to lift, the shoulders to relax, and the chin to tuck slightly under so it's parallel with the ground, and relax your jaw, because that restricts the blood flow in the spine to and from the brain. And you're literally starving your brain of oxygen if you're clenching your jaw. It also re-triggers the sympathetic nervous system. You want to balance the stress with the relaxation, so you're calm but alert. When you've done that, just focus on your breathing. And one of the big problems a lot of us suffer from is upper chest breathing, because we're so stressed. So the diaphragm, which is the bit that's supposed to do the breathing, is almost locked. You find it's quite rigid in a lot of people. Allow your breathing to move down to your belly, above your belly button. Yeah, forget the whole flat stomach thing. Just as you breathe in, it expands. As you breathe out, it contracts. And if you just let go and focus on your breathing for 60 seconds, you will be able to connect with that still small voice of calm. If you do this 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, not only will you find it easier to get in touch with your intuition, you will find your stress levels drop, you feel calmer, you feel happier, it's easier to make decisions, and it's also contagious. You will attract less conflict because you yourself are calm. So that is a really simple technique in 60 seconds to be able to hear that still small voice of calm inside. The key, though, is not to force it. You cannot force your intuition to talk to you. You cannot force your intuition to speak or to give you the signs you want. Your job is to become like a detective, looking for these signs, constantly setting the intention of, I'm open to hearing what my intuition has to tell me today. And also realizing those signs don't necessarily come in the form of thoughts. They can be feelings, they can be songs that you hear when you're out and about, they can be sentences that somebody randomly says to you. It's amazing the different ways your intuition can talk to you. So be open and be calmer, and you'll much more easily connect with your intuition. So I hope that helps you with your question, Julie. So who have we got next? Wow, this is cool. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so one from Astrid is, how do I know whether to trust a decision based on intuition versus one based on logic? So, good question. Excuse me, having a slap. The thing with real intuition is it feels right. When you rationalize an answer to something, it thinks right. They're two very different decision-making processes. And I find that a really brilliant decision is one where intuition and common sense agree. And that's where you really get breakthroughs. When you have an intuition decision that's really spot on, you get what I call a duh moment. Yeah, where you just go, I can't believe we didn't spot that before. And it's something that just, it makes sense. And intuition decisions are never complicated. They're always simple. And they always make things clearer rather than more confusing. The mind is brilliant at creating confusion and creating mental clutter and analyzing and evaluating and rationalizing. When you get to a mind solution, it may be simple and beautiful and clear because it may agree with your intuition. It may also be complex and difficult and clunky. If it's complex, difficult and clunky, it's not an intuitive decision. Excuse me. If it's your intuition, it will feel like everything falls into place. So that's kind of my metric. If it's complicated, awkward, difficult, then it's mind. If it's a, well, yeah, okay, that's what we've got to do, that feeling, yeah, we all know it, then it's intuition. So who's next? Okay, now this is a really important one. This is from Liz. And she says it's easy to worry about trusting your intuition because if you make a mistake with it, it can affect other people. So my question, throwing this right back at you, watching this right now, everyone, is it your intuition that's the problem on this one, or is it the decision? We all find it hard to make decisions that will affect others, and yet so few of our decisions are independent of others. So often when this one's running, it's actually fear of the decision rather than fear of the intuition. And one thing I've found over the years, both with myself and working with my one-to-one mentoring clients and my business coaching clients with intuition, is when intuition is right, there's a knowing that at some level it's for the highest good. I have never yet come across a situation where intuition has deliberately caused somebody to do something unkind. You can sometimes have to make really hard decisions. And I know that back in my corporate days, I've been a manager in companies where we've had to make really hard decisions. But when it's an intuitive decision, it comes from the heart, not the head. And the fact that you're even asking yourself this question, Liz, and all the rest of us who ask this question, means that you want to come from the heart, which is actually the biggest step. Caring about how your decisions will affect others is an amazing thing to do. So if you've got a decision, your intuition's saying, I need to be doing this, and there's somebody out there who's not going to like it, ask yourself, go and do that breathing technique I just taught you. Ask yourself, what can I do, or how can I do this to mean that it's for the highest good of all and causes the minimum pain? Because there will be a way. And also sometimes we use our lack of trust for our intuition as an excuse not to have to make difficult decisions. So really ask yourself, look inside, am I just avoiding this decision? And that will really, really help you. So next question. Who's up next? So trusting your intuition. This one's from a dear friend of mine, actually. How do I know that my intuition is right? And how do I overcome my fear of following it when my head is telling me otherwise? So trusting your intuition can be really scary. I remember back at the end of my corporate days in 2003, I was head of market research at Dyson, famous for its brightly coloured vacuum cleaners and its very funky hand dryers. And being head of market research for a company like that was a pretty cool job. And I could have taken the leap into all sorts of careers that would have been very high income, very high pressure. But I felt more and more drawn to study to become an NLP trainer. So to really, really be able to train others to use NLP to help people. And NLP, for those of you who don't know, neuro-linguistic programming, it's kind of like the user manual for your brain, or I like to think of it as engineers psychology. It takes psychology and it makes it practical in ways that you and I can use while we're waiting for the kettle to boil. So I'd studied to be a practitioner and then a master practitioner, and I somehow knew the next step was to become a trainer. I didn't think I ever wanted to become an NLP trainer, but I knew I needed to study the course, because when you do the course, the level of personal development you go through to become certified as a trainer is huge, and I knew I wanted that. And there were so many signs that it was the right thing to do. It was a month-long intensive course. I knew I couldn't get the time off work as a sabbatical. I knew if I wanted to do the course, I was going to have to choose between doing this course and my entire corporate career. And my entire corporate career was looking pretty good and it was going great places. And somehow I knew I had to trust. I wasn't brave enough. So it's like the universe kept putting obstacles in my way, saying, no, come on, prove to us you want to go on this route. Some of those obstacles were totally crazy, but I still managed to get around them. And the more I trusted my intuition and made it round the obstacles, the more I realized that my path was right. And I took that leap, and it was as though I jumped off a cliff. And I trusted that, like a condor, I would find the thermal before I needed to learn how to flap my wings. And I did, because I knew I could make a much bigger difference in the world doing what I do now than working in anybody else's company. So how did I know it was the right decision? Because I looked for the signs and I asked my heart, and I had to put my head on hold, because the rational decision would have been, don't do this right now, carry on with your career. You're doing fine, thanks, girl. You're already a master practitioner. What do you need to be a trainer for? So how do you learn to trust your intuition? I would strongly suggest you start with baby steps. And if your mind gets in the way and starts telling you stories, press pause and ask yourself, is this a genuine objection? Or is this my mind just saying it's scared? Because both are okay. If it's a genuine objection, ask your intuition for a solution. Give it a job. I need a solution to this objection. Your intuition will give it to you. If it's your mind just being scared, so it's telling you a story to distract you, you will know. You will know, because it all happens up here. You'll feel it in your head. If you bring that thinking down to your heart, suddenly you'll see the truth. What's real in this? What's story? What's projection? What's really here? When you start taking out the drama and the soap opera, you'll find out what the real objections are, because your mind might be spotting something that you haven't noticed that needs to be handled. So be open to it, bring the energy from your head to your heart, and ask yourself, what's real? So I hope that's helped on that one. So who's next? Oh, Renata, hello from Canada. My goodness, I can't believe you're up at this time of day. Thank you. I'm so honored that you've joined us live. Okay, monkey mind versus intuition, still arguing in your head. I hope we've covered some of that for you today. If you feel we have, please add it in the chat comments. Your monkey mind is brilliant. Your monkey mind is there. It keeps us amused. It keeps us entertained. But it is like a monkey, or the Buddhists often call it a grasshopper. It flits from one thing to another. Now, one thing to tell the difference between monkey mind and intuition is your monkey mind, it does jump. Your intuition is solid and grounded. So if you've got a problem you need to solve and it's a monkey mind getting in the way, the answer will keep changing. I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. If it's your intuition, it stays constant and steady, and the solutions they won't jump around. You might find there's a seismic breakthrough, but they won't jump around. When your monkey mind is arguing in your head, as we just said, it's bring the energy from your head to your heart and ask, what would my heart advise? What would my heart advise? And really watch for the stories, because I had a lovely example with somebody I was working with recently who was telling me a story about how they had got completely worked up about something somebody had said to them. And this person had been so unkind and so unfair. And this person, even just telling me the story, you could see the whole physiological reaction happening. And then she got to the end of the story and she dropped the bombshell, which was, but this never actually happened. This was all in my head. And she realized that she had only been telling herself the story in her head, but her body had felt every thought she had thought, or thunk, as my 3-year-old says. So the monkey mind has the ability to craft stories that take us away from truth, both mentally and also at a really deep physical level. And we can press pause on those stories, go and do the breathing technique and just say, okay, what is story? What is real? Are there any objections that I really need to deal with here? And then deal with them, because the objections might be valid. The monkey mind wants to be heard. Yeah, I see it in my kids the whole time. If they feel they've not been heard, they get louder and louder and louder until they are. If you push away your monkey mind, as Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. If you push it away, if you resist your monkey mind, you're actually giving it all your power and all your attention. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to think about you. Will you please shut up? No, hear it. Sit down. Give yourself 60 seconds. Tell it can download its whole story, all its worries. 60 seconds, job done. What's true in this? Is there anything I need to take action on? And then ask your heart, what's the answer? So that's a brilliant first stage, and I really hope that's helped you, Renata. Let me know if you've got any more questions today. Then, so, one from Debs. How to trust your body when you've had a tumultuous relationship with your body in the past? Well, I would strongly suggest breathing. Okay, and I don't mean, obviously breathing is not optional, because if you weren't breathing right now, you wouldn't be watching the webinar. When you reconnect with your breath is the connection between your mind and your body and your energy. In the ancient wisdom, the breath is known in so many traditions as prana, as chi, which all means life force. Your breath is your life force. When you've had a tumultuous relationship with your body, what it translates to is that somehow there's been a disconnect, there's been a judgment, there's been a rejection in one direction or the other. And it's really brilliant that you're looking at your relationship with yourself. If you just focus on mindful breathing, you can use the simple technique we covered earlier as a start. Mindful breathing to reconnect with your body, because when we've had problems with the body in the past, we disconnect and we go into our heads. So mindful breathing and grounding. So on the Intuition Breakthrough Blueprint, one of the first things we do is a fantastic yoga pose called Tadasana, the mountain pose, which is literally a standing pose. That mountain strength of really being grounded. And then there's an extra technique we add in called the vertical alignment breath, where you breathe in from the earth to the heart, out from the heart to the sky, in from the sky to the heart, and out from the heart to the earth. What you're doing there is you're using the breathing to ground yourself and to reconnect with the whole of your body. I would strongly suggest mindful breathing for you. When you're grounded in Tadasana, I would also suggest that you maybe just go to the parts of the body that you are in conflict with one at a time and really gently breathe in and breathe out. And as you breathe out, set the intention of I let go. And allow yourself to be completely safe with this. In a webinar, I don't know what the issues are that you've faced, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to guess what they might be. But really be gentle with this process, breathing into that body part, allowing it to feel safe and surrounded and accepted, and then breathe out. And breathing, being fully aware of your breathing and allowing that breathing, whatever level of breathing you can manage, to be natural and comfortable and as close to belly breathing as you can, that will make a huge difference. It's coming back in this moment. Often when we're rejecting our body at some level, we're actually rejecting the present moment rather than the body, and the body is just the means we're using for that. Does that make sense? So how to trust your body because you feel your intuition in the body. I would strongly suggest you start with acceptance, because when we don't trust, it's normally because of rejection. The fact is we've all got our own body issues, whether it's a physical ailment, whether it's an injury, whether it's feeling unhealthy. We've all got body issues, and we all, when we run those issues, push that issue away. We reject part of the body, which means you're rejecting part of yourself. So coming back to the moment, getting grounded, mindful breathing, and acceptance. I'm not asking you to do anything else. If you need more pointers on this, please email me, because you'll have my email address as part of the webinar here. Acceptance. Come back into the now, breathe in and breathe out. If you can get to the stage of filling that body part, imagining you're filling it with a soft, warm, golden light, that can actually start creating a healing relationship between you and your body. But I think that's probably a topic for another webinar. So I hope that one's helped. So who's next? I've got, okay. Okay, so from Rosie, what to do when you know your intuition is saying what to do and your other brain is screaming that you're not doing enough and letting the momentum drop. Well, what often happens here when the intuition is saying this is right, this is what we need to be doing, and your brain is screaming, you know, oh, come on, we need to be doing this instead. We've got to bear in mind, this monkey mind, this grasshopper mind, it loves jumping from one thing to another. It loves making sure that we're kept busy. And it's a modern epidemic, is we find things to do. And if we can't find them to do, we find things to think. And, you know, I'm as good as everyone else at this. We like to fill our time because the quiet and the silence is more terrifying than anything else for a lot of us. It's why I notice with a lot of people, when you go around their houses, there'll be a radio going and there'll be a TV going and they've got their phone in their hands. We're at extreme distraction. I would suggest on something like this, where you've got this conflict between the intuition and the mind telling you that the intuition is going to let the momentum drop. Do Tadasana, go deep inside with the mountain pose, do the belly breathing, and ask yourself, what is the real issue here? Because what you're describing is two behaviors. You've got the intuition saying we need to do this, and the mind saying we need to do that. What is the root of this conflict? And one question that can often unlock this is, what is my mind scared of that means it's being motivated by this behavior? Because often the more actions we take, the less time we have to be who we really are. There'll be a reason why the monkey mind is sitting there making these distractions come up or telling you that the stuff needs to be done, because it's scared of something. And if you take that quiet moment and say, what is it my mind is scared of? And there are 4 lovely questions you can ask yourselves. And in fact, I'm going to do a handout for this on the replay page for this webinar. In the NLP world, we call them Cartesian coordinates, and they kind of blow your mind. So take the example of trusting your intuition. There's 4 questions. What will happen if I trust my intuition? What won't happen if I trust my intuition? What will happen if I don't trust my intuition? And what won't happen if I don't trust my intuition? That sends your head into a spin, but it's often brilliant for unlocking what the deep-rooted objection or fear is. And when you've got awareness of that, you can take action to deal with it. So I will do a handout on the replay. It'll be below the replay when you see it, with those 4 questions. They're really, really good for unlocking the hidden motivation behind the mind objecting to your intuition. So I hope that's helped on that one. Everybody keep those questions coming if there's any more. And who have we got next? Great one from Jill. How do you convince others about a decision you've made using your intuition? How do you convince others? Well, when it's your intuition and you've got that kind of duh moment and it's complete clarity, often others don't need convincing. But it also depends how you go in about negotiating. There's a lovely thing that I do in NLP Diploma, which is an entry-level NLP training course, where you talk about rapport, standing with somebody else in their map of the world without judgment. And that if you want anybody to come with you on a journey somewhere, and I'm talking a metaphorical journey, you need to start with where they're standing. But what most of us do is we've got this great big chasm between where the person is and where we want them to go. And we're standing on the other side of it saying, hello, Cooey, come over here. The grass is so green here, you'll love it. But it requires them to firstly decide they want to move, and secondly, walk over a scary bridge to our side. And it doesn't work. And when you want to convince somebody who's very left-brained that your intuition is right, if you do it from standing over here going, hey, my intuition's great, come and trust my fluffy stuff, it's not going to happen. You need to go and stand in their shoes and imagine what it is that they might be scared of. And imagine how you need to explain this to them in a way that they'll understand, that will inspire them to come over that bridge and join you with where your intuition says you need to be. You cannot force somebody to believe your intuition. In a business environment, you often do have to put a solid case together, but true intuition can create a solid business case. But I would suggest you go and stand next to them in your mind's eye, stand in their shoes and look at what their objections might be. What might the fears be that they have that would stop them from trusting your intuition? Deal with the fears, and then if the intuition is clear enough, they will come with you. But also your job is to be completely convinced yourself, because when we're completely convinced about something but not attached to others being convinced, that's when it becomes magnetic. When you do it with an open heart, we've all seen people presenting and they're so in alignment with what they're presenting, but there's also no judgment. They're not telling you that you're wrong. They're saying, I know this to be true and I'd love you to believe it, but I'm not going to try and force you to. But here are all the reasons why it feels right for me. That is much more compelling than somebody coming in saying, you're wrong, and these are all the reasons why you're wrong, and this is why you should think what I think. So it might be that you could play with some things around that. I'm sure you know well the people that you've asked this question about. How could you be open-hearted but completely convinced and completely solid in your trust of your intuition? Because when you are absolutely in alignment, there's very often little convincing to be done. So I hope that's helped on that question. Any more? So, great question from Melissa here. My intuition has been way off before. How can I learn to trust it now? I'm going to make a confession here. Live on the internet, nobody's watching. I had a situation a few weeks ago where what I thought was my intuition was way off, and it could have been so embarrassing if I'd acted on it. But when I stood back afterwards and looked at what had happened, I realized it wasn't my intuition at all. It was my monkey mind playing with my instinct. So I'm going to be absolutely open here. I was sitting in a meeting, and it was quite a big meeting, and I knew everybody in the room apart from one person. And the one person was sitting next to me, and I had put my meeting notes and my mobile on my chair and gone to catch up with a few people I'd not seen for a while. And when I came back to sit down at the beginning of the meeting, and it had basically started, my mobile wasn't there. And I was like, oh my God, my mobile's gone. My mobile's gone. I know I brought it in. I remember turning it off as I walked in the room, so I couldn't even phone it to find out where it was. And I just sat there going, I can't believe my mobile's gone. My mobile's gone. My mobile's gone. And I don't know if it's insured. And all this panic and the story the monkey mind tells you. And the woman next to me whispered in my ear that she had to pop out and run a quick errand in the middle of this meeting, which was a very unusual thing for someone to do. So I didn't know this woman. She tells me completely unprompted that she's just got to pop out and she'll be back in 15 minutes. She picks up her bag, looks at me, looks at the door, and leaves. And my monkey mind told me where my phone was. So I'm sat there going, oh my God, my phone's just left the room and it's switched off and I've got no way of phoning it. Yeah, so the stories I'm so embarrassed telling you this. The lady came back, and I'm sat there doing this terribly British thing of, do I say anything? My phone's gone. There was nobody near my chair apart from this person, and decided not to, and waited till there was a break in the meeting. And I just thought, I just don't know what to do. But I kept telling myself, my intuition was telling me that she'd taken my phone. I was mortified at myself when I stood up. I had been sitting on my phone for the whole meeting. The chair was one of those weird chairs that it just seemed to have a dip in the right place that the phone was there. And even though I'd been rummaging around under my bottom, I couldn't feel it. I was so embarrassed. And then it hit my button. Oh no, but my intuition told me she had my phone. No, it didn't. My instinct of, am I safe, was triggered by the unusual behavior from a stranger, which then fed my monkey mind stories of somebody's stolen my phone. It was all fear-based. There was nothing from the heart. All of those body places that get triggered when it's genuine intuition were not triggered. I allowed my monkey mind to convince me. So I'm actually really pleased it happened, because sometimes it's really easy to just go steamrolling ahead, trusting your intuition. And actually, it's not your intuition. So in that case, if I'd stopped and I'd grounded and I'd centered, and of course I'd gone into the fight or flight if somebody's stolen my phone, I wasn't grounded, I wasn't centered, I wasn't connected. I was feeding the monkey mind stories and using that logic to justify and rationalize. When you practice tuning into your intuition, you'll find it generally comes up in the same way, in the same places in your body. When you find your intuition is triggering a kind of an adrenaline stress response, then that's your warning sign it's not your intuition. That day, if I hadn't been feeding those stories, I would have spotted it was an adrenaline stress response, which means it couldn't be my intuition telling me it was right. I was feeding the story, I was feeding the drama, and I felt that stress and tension rising higher and higher and higher. That was my sign that it was my monkey mind. How can you learn to trust it again when you got it wrong? I would say go back and do the journal I talked about. Yeah, I got in my journal that night all the reasons why it wasn't my intuition, and I'm so glad I didn't act on it. It would have been so embarrassing and so hurtful for her. It taught me some very important life lessons. How can you learn to trust it? Little things. Start small. And also have a daily radar when you get out of bed. I'm going to look for ways I can trust my intuition today. The more you build on it, the more you'll get that contrast, and the more you'll be able to easily spot the difference between intuition and monkey mind. So I hope that helps. The diary is one of the best ways. And when we're really honest, intuition isn't actually wrong that often. Normally, when it doesn't hit the target, it's because it wasn't intuition. Does that make sense? So I hope that's answered that question. So who have we got next? So I've got a question from earlier before we started. So what's the difference between intuition and a gut feeling? I hope we've covered that. So intuition is when it's heart-based and it's very clear and it feels very right, whereas a gut feeling is more answering the question of, am I safe in this short-term immediate moment? And it's more of an animal instinct. Then, okay, the difference between intuition and premonitions. We've all had those horrible moments where you just suddenly have this dread that something terrible is going to happen. And how can you tell the difference? How can you tell if that's just a fear or if it's your intuition? It's a good question. It comes from Isabel, and I've heard it from a lot of people over recent weeks as we've been doing the Intuition Breakthrough Blueprint. I would say is ground the energy. When fear comes up, it's something that very quickly takes us into that fight or flight place. And it's something that very quickly stresses us out. It gets us back into the primal part of the brain. And it means we don't have access to long-term decision making. It takes us into instinct instead of intuition. Breathe it out through your feet. Go and do something else. You can even, literally physically shake it out of your body. Do some mindful breathing and then ask yourself, what's the truth in this? Yes, sometimes we do get premonitions of things that might happen, and somehow they do come to pass. But the vast majority of the time when we get a fear-based premonition, it's not actually right. It's a fear. Ground it, mindful breathing, ask yourself, what's the truth in this? Is this really a premonition, or is this just my mind and my being saying, I'm a bit scared about this? Because that's okay. But don't conflate the fear with your intuition, because then you're going to end up getting scared of your intuition because you're going to be scared that it's going to tell you that terrible things are going to happen. It's okay to worry. It's okay to have fears. Breathe them out. And then what is true in this? And don't feed the story. If one of those things comes up, do not feed the monkey mind story. It will just make it worse. Your intuition will always have a certain place in your body that it comes. And maybe in those situations, instead of thinking about intuition, you might want to think about inner wisdom. What does my inner wisdom say to this? Yeah, if the person I've most trusted ever in the world could advise me right now, what would they say? Connect with that inner wisdom. That often helps you to differentiate between the two. But it's a tricky one. And if you keep the intuition journal, you'll find that really helps. And one of the things we cover a lot on the Intuition Breakthrough Blueprint is how to connect with your intuition and how to tell the difference between that and the stories. And we cover it in really practical, inner engineer-friendly ways. It's pretty much a fluff-free zone, but there's also all sorts of techniques you can use, and I've got guided visualizations in there and mini meditations that can help you really, really reconnect with the inner wisdom and not the monkey mind stories. And I know a lot of you watching this have done the blueprint, so thank you. I really hope you found it useful. If any of you haven't done it yet, there's a link on the replay of where you can register. I'm just going to see if I can get it to come up now, actually. It might let me, it might not. Hey, cool. If any of you haven't done the blueprint yet, here is where, is it going to let this come up on the screen? There you go. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. If not, I will make sure it's on the replay page. But to get to the blueprint, if your heart's calling you to do it, it's a 7-day program. And I've broken how to get reconnected with your inner wisdom, and more importantly, how to deal with your inner critic getting in the way. I've broken it down into 7 simple steps that people have been finding really life-changing, not just when looking at their intuition, but dealing with the whole way we talk to ourselves. And you can find it at clarejosa.com/intuition. That's CLARE josa.com/intuition. I would absolutely love to share it with you, and I've been honored. It's already helped hundreds of people, and we've only been running it for a few weeks. So if your heart's calling you to join us on that, please do let me know. I'm going to do 2 more questions, and then I'm going to set you free to enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good one from Kim. I like this one as well. Great questions, thank you. You make it so easy to do a Q&A with such fab questions. How do I know it's my intuition or just what I think I want? Well, there is nothing wrong with thinking you want something, which is absolutely fine. You can do there's a technique we cover in the first few days of the blueprint, which teaches you step by step how to find the places in your body where different emotions come through. So the way to find out whether it's intuition or a desire is to feel the emotion. Feel the emotion that you're feeling right now when you think about this thing that you think you want. And where in your body do you feel it? What kind of feeling is it? Does it have any colors attached? Is it moving? Is it still? Is it throbbing, pulsating, quiet, calm, like a wave? All these different things that this feeling can have in the body, because every emotion we feel somewhere in the body. And then shake that off and think back to a time when it really was your intuition and run that process again. Where in your body do you feel the emotion that goes with pure intuition, pure deep knowing, inner wisdom? Where is it? What kind of shape and size? Is there any movement? Is there any sound, any images, any colors? And then compare the two. When it's your intuition and not just your monkey mind's desires, they'll feel quite similar. When they're quite different, then you know it's not your intuition. It doesn't mean that's wrong. You can just ask your intuition, okay, over the next few days, could you give me some signs? And this is actually a really useful thing you can do. Ask for signs. When you get up in the morning, before you get out of bed, do 3 deep sighing breaths to kind of wake up the body, breathing in through the nose and out with a sigh. And then ask yourself to help. Ask that inner piece of you, that inner wisdom to help. Give me signs today to help me make this decision. Give me signs today to help me see whether this is my intuition or just wishful thinking. And then just be open for the signs, because they will come. And you'll be surprised where they come from. It's quite creative, your inner wisdom. Ask for signs, let go of the fact you've asked, and then be open to hearing. 3 simple steps, and you'll find you get your answers to help you clarify. So I hope that helps. And I'm going to do 1 more question. Let's see, which is there a topic I've not covered yet? I really hope I've covered everything you wanted me to cover today. Okay, overcoming my fear of following my intuition. This is probably the biggest block. Young children are very deeply connected, and then the more the rational thinking and cognitive processes in the brain are developed over time, the easier it is to become disconnected from your intuition. Now, your intuition is a fundamental part of you and who you are. It's totally natural to connect with it, but it's like we stick all these layers in between it during our day. And over the years and the decades, it becomes kind of like crazed glass. So it's quite hard to see through and we can't reconnect. To overcome the fear of trusting your intuition, I've talked about the journal, I've talked about how to feel it in your body. I would strongly, strongly, strongly suggest the most potent thing you can do to overcome that fear is to look at what's driving that fear. It might be something you can handle yourself. It might be you need some one-to-one work on this. You will know when you connect with this how you need to resolve it. Your intuition will hopefully tell you. Go deep inside. What is it I'm really scared of about trusting my intuition? And what kind of person would it make me if I trusted my intuition? Because often the deepest blocks are at an identity level. What kind of person am I? What do I need to believe about me to be able to trust my intuition? And what do I need to forgive and release about me to be able to trust my intuition? Now, that's actually going to go quite deep. And if you want to experiment with this and play with this, please do it in a light-hearted, playful way, because this isn't about opening Pandora's box. This is about increasing your awareness. There's also a really good way. I wrote down a question that I wanted you to ask yourselves. Here's how to find the blocks to your intuition, okay? I find it hard to trust my intuition because. I find it hard to trust my intuition because. Now, what comes after that because is gold dust. Because it's been wrong in the past, or only fluffy people trust their intuition. I don't know. It's different for each of us. I find it hard to trust my intuition because. Scribble the answers down unedited on a piece of paper. And then you can go through them one by one and ask yourself, is it true? Because often it's not. You know, these beliefs and these excuses and these old fears and blocks are actually not true. They're out of date. They're not valid anymore. And then you can ask yourself another question for each one, which gives you the solution. What do I want instead? I call this my magic question. What do I want instead for each of those? And make it something you can actually have some control over, because you can't change anyone apart from yourself. And make it something that at some level your heart believes is achievable. So for each of those blocks that's come up under I can't trust my intuition because, check if it's true, what do I want instead? And then take action to move towards the what do I want instead. It's an amazingly simple way of clearing out the blocks, but amazingly potent. If you need to go and book a one-to-one with someone to get it done, go and do it. If you need to find a friend to talk you through it, go and do that. You're not alone. It's something that's so important to me. And every course I run is that we have a group that goes with that course so that you're not doing it on your own. Because whether you come up with a block or whether you want to celebrate an achievement, being able to do that with other people is so important. And the kind of work I love doing, it's often the case that in our circle of friends, we might not have people who understand what we've just done, what we've just released, yeah? So this is why I always have the groups there. Get into the group. I've got this block. This is what I want instead. I'm totally stuck on how I can get to that point. Anybody got any ideas? You're not alone. Go and do it. The freedom you will experience as you gently clear out these blocks. It's not about releasing. It's not about getting rid. It's not about pushing away. It's about releasing and letting go. That freedom, that clarity, that connectedness you'll get, even if you just deal with 2 or 3 of these blocks in the next month, is so potent. It will create enormous shifts for you in your life. So I hope that answers that question. I'm going to draw the Q&A to a close because I think that's probably enough for you to take in today. I do want to talk to you about something that we could do if you've enjoyed the blueprint and if you've enjoyed working together. I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you about what we're doing next. And I know that some of you who are on this live call have already joined me, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I have felt very called for a long time to be able to work with a group of passionate people who want to dive in deeply to do the inside work so that they can get on with changing the world. And by doing this inside work, it means you're clearing out the old blocks, the old limiting beliefs, the old fears, the old worries, that when you are taking your steps on that world-changing journey, whether it's a massive world-changing journey or just a local small-scale one, it's still totally valid and important. It's the kind of thing that would get us to sabotage just before our dreams come true. The kind of thing that means you don't return that call, that you don't take that interview, that you somehow manage to make it not happen. And the blocks and the fears and the limits and the excuses and everything that we store and we set, you know, that we stand by for this, they're all real to us in that moment. But when we deal with them when we learn how to handle the inner critic, when we know how to handle the monkey mind, when we really dive in more deeply below the thoughts and we get to the beliefs and we get to the values and even the who am I stuff, the real core identity, when you lay those firm foundations, anything else you want to build in your life will be so much more solid. So I've made a commitment to those of you who are ready to make a commitment to yourselves that I've created the Authentically Awesome Business Mastermind. So if you are dreaming of running your own business, or if you're teaching local classes, or even if you're helping somebody else manage their business and you want to bring more authenticity into what you're doing and really lay those firm foundations and deal with the stuff that would otherwise derail you, I think you're going to love it. For the first 8 weeks, and we start on Monday, the first 8 weeks we're diving in and doing the Authentically Awesome Business Blueprint, which takes you through why most people are building their business upside down, why that makes it hard work and it can end up toppling over, and what you can do instead, broken down into 8 sections so that it builds layer by layer totally firm foundations, and by the end of it you'll feel so much clearer, so much less stressed, calmer, you'll have a clear vision, you'll be able to magnetize the support and the clients that you need, and you're going to have a business plan that is limiting belief proof and that you're going to fall in love with, and you'll already have taken big action if that's what your heart wants you to do. After that, we've got in July, we're running the Authentically Awesome Business Summit, which is 10 of the most inspirational women in the UK who are all running their own businesses, sharing with you some of their insider secrets that help them to create breakthroughs. In the summer, I'm running a summer school for you, which is holiday friendly, so it's not too big, but it's going to help you do the number one thing that your clients, whether they're your own business or somebody else's business clients, that your clients wish you were doing, which most of us are not. And in September, we dive in and we're doing the Inner Critic Bootcamp. So if you want to join us, and you can join us this weekend, I'm offering you, everybody who's joined us so far and everybody who joins before midnight on Sunday has a chance to win a prize that money cannot buy, which is, I will create for you, for one lucky winner, I will create for you a bespoke guided visualization meditation you can do to remove your personal blocks to taking the steps towards your dreams in the future. So you can literally sit there or lie there and listen to this, and it will help you clear those blocks. And we'll do a session where we identify what those blocks are, and then I will record that for you and just for you. So it will be like having me sitting there doing one-to-one mentoring with you every time you listen to it. And I can just imagine how that will help. And if you're excited about this, I would really, really love to be able to share the journey with you. The doors close on Monday when the mastermind goes live, and then nobody gets in for the next 2 months at least. So if your heart's been calling you to join us, come and join us. This stuff is gold dust. I've never shared it outside of VIP Day mentoring before, but I feel really, really cool to dive in with a group of committed, passionate people who know that it's time to take the next step. And if you want to join us for this, here's where you can find it. Let me just... There you go. So it's making a commitment to the future you today. It's an 8-week program leading into the mastermind. At the moment, there are some incredible early bird bonuses, and also the price will be going up over time. So this is the lowest the price will ever be. And if you join us today, you get that price for the life of your membership. So when the price goes up, and it will be at least double by the end of this year, you will only pay this. As long as you're still a member, you stick with the entrance price, which is just incredible. I hope today has been useful for you. I really, really hope you've enjoyed the webinar. I hope you've had answers to your questions. If you've got any more, please let me know. If you've not joined the Intuition Breakthrough Blueprint yet, please do. If your heart's calling you to join the mastermind, I would be honored to share the journey with you. And I would like to say a huge thank you to you for taking the time to watch this webinar. And a huge thank you to you for any actions that you take as a result of it. So please let me know via the comments, what actions could you take today in order to make those shifts that you've been dreaming of? And how are you going to use your intuition today? And how are you going to actually inspire yourself to reconnect with it? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing weekend, and hopefully our paths will cross again very soon.